last week I was talking about creation myths, and near the end I was talking about like a little preview of what I'm going to talk about this time. In that video, I said I was split between flood myths and the one I am going to talk about today. I had decided on the descent of Ishtar to the underworld. Each mythology and each culture has their own afterlife. And with that afterlife, the land of the dead is called many things within different cultures and mythologies. To some, it is entire realms, or it can have multiple different areas where, depending on what you did within your life, you get sorted into a different area of the land of the dead. The underworld is mostly referred to two different names in Mesopotamian mythology. Well, really three, but the third one's a bit confusing. So I'm just going to be referring to the two most common ones. The two names of the Mesopotamian underworld is the netherworld and Kanugi. And within this myth, the descent of Ishtar to the underworld is referred to as Kanugi, so that's why I will be calling it from now on Kanugi. And each mythology has some kind of story where someone is traveling to the underworld for whatever reason they have. And this is what Mesopotamians had: the descent of Ishtar to the underworld. The descent of Ishtar to the underworld is an Akkadian hymn story from the late Bronze Age. And the Bronze Age is the age where people were still using bronze weapons. I may make a video just to explain the different ages: Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. Just so I won't have to take time to explain them in these videos. It shares basic themes of seasonal change and traveling to the underworld that can also be found in the Greek myth of Persephone's abduction to the underworld. That is where the similarities end, unfortunately. Or whatever. That's where the similarities end. Because the rest of the descent of Ishtar to the underworld has things like involving pride, anger, a character named Good Looking the Playboy. I am not making that up. There's a character named Good Looking the Playboy. That's what it translates to English. And it also has a goddess threatening to raise the dead. So yeah, she threatens to make zombies. Apparently people were terrified of the possibility of the dead rising and eating us, even with the Mesopotamians. The story is a long one too, so try to stay with me. It starts off with Ishtar traveling to Kanugi. And Kanugi is described as the land of no return. And Kanugi is also described as the house which those who entered cannot leave. The house which those who enter cannot leave. On the road where traveling is one way only. To the house where those who enter are deprived of light, where dust is their food, clay their bread. They see no light. They dwell in darkness. They are clothed like birds with feathers. Over the door and the bolt, dust has settled. Once Ishtar gets to the first gates of Kanugi, there are, I believe, 7 gates. Yeah, 7 gates. Once she gets to the first one, she demands the the gatekeeper, to let her in. Otherwise, she threatens to raise the dead, let them feast on the living, and let them outnumber the living. So yeah, zombies. And because of that threat, the gatekeeper went to the queen of Kanugi, Ishtar, and tells her of Ishtar's threat. And Ishtar is not happy. Not at all. And like I said in my video about the introduction to Mesopotamian mythology, in this particular story, Ishtar and Ishtar are sisters. But despite that, she allows Ishtar to go through the 7 gates of Kanugi. However, through each one, Ishtar loses one piece of her clothing. Like, for example, Ishtar goes through one gate, and in return for passing through that gate, she gets her crown is taken away from her. And that continues until she's through the 7th gate and she is nude. She gets angry about her treatment and tries to attack Ishtar. However, Ishtar loses, and Ishtar orders her servant to give Ishtar 60 diseases, and Ishtar ends up trapped in Kanugi. Pop Sukal goes before Sin and Ea to tell him what happened to Ishtar and how worried he was about Ishtar. So Ea creates Good Looks the Playboy to try to talk Ishtar into letting Ishtar talks to try to talk to Ishtar and letting Ishtar go. In fact, Ea tells Good Looks the Playboy to say to swear the oath by the great gods. Once she did, he was supposed to ask, supposed to say, "Hey, my lady, let them give me the water skin that I may drink water from it." However, once he does this, she gets mad and curses him. In fact, this was the curse that she placed on Good Looks. Come, come, Good Looks, I shall curse you with a great curse. I shall decree you a fate that shall never be forgotten. Bread gleaned from this city's plows shall be your food. The city drains shall be your only drinking place. The shade of a city wall your only standing place. There shall threshold steps your only sitting place. The drunkard and the thirsty shall slap your cheek. So that didn't work in getting Ishtar to let Ishtar go. But she does have her servant Namtor to go revive Ishtar with the water of life, which is the water skin that Good Looks was talking about, and for her to be brought before Ishtar. She then lets her sister go, and Ishtar goes back through all 7 gates to get all of her stuff back. The catch was it was an exchange, and in return for Ishtar being let go, someone else had to go into Kanugi in her place. So this man, a man named Dumuzi, who was Ishtar's lover in her youth, they had him take Ishtar's place. This does not sit well with her sister, with Dumuzi's sister, Belili, and she's angry at Ishtar. The myth ends with Belili saying, "You shall not rob me forever of my only brother." On the day when Dumuzi comes back up, and the lapis lazuli pipe and the chameleon ring comes up with him. When male and female mourners come up with him, the dead shall come up and smell the smoke offering. And that's how it ends. So, outside the seasonal change and traveling into the underworld, the interesting part of this myth is the amount of fear people of Mesopotamia apparently have for the dead. Because in most mythologies, sure, there'll be big gloomy places, but there is still this hope of being in a better place, or in some cultures, reincarnated. Here, there's no hope of that. There's just the one place, and there's no mentions of there being somewhere better. It's just, it's described as the dead eating clay as their bread. the threat that Ishtar makes is raising the dead, letting them feast on the flesh of the living, and eventually letting the dead outnumber the living. That was her threat. So it's obvious that the Mesopotamians had a fear of death. And of the dead and of dying. Which is understandable. In fact, there is another story that comes from Mesopotamia that I will talk in more depth in the future, where after a man named Gilgamesh goes through this long journey of trying to find a way to become immortal because of his fear of dying, and this started after his friend died, which again, the fear of dying is understandable. I mean, with science we know the process of decay, of how our bodies decay after a long time, but there isn't much what happens to our consciousness after death. Could be we move on to somewhere else or nothing. Well, that was depressing. Next time we are going to be talking about flood myths.